I have this really neat 6-sail Northwave quiver. Came with this really cool bag. Only thing is the draft profile is too far back. The cut is really good. The sail sizes are 3-1, 3-5, 4-0, 4-5, 5-0, and 5-6. So a really good quiver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the battens from the larger sails or from larger sections and move them to a smaller section, and I'm going to have the draft profile move forward by sanding just the front, so it'd be thicker going further in, rather than right now it's a very smooth tapered back, but the actual draft profile is too far back for foiling. It's too powerful. It'd be great for an old, skinny, longer, thin gorge board, which would be great if you need the power to keep you going, because they're not as hydrodynamically efficient as a foil, or even the modern boards where they're kind of wider and not as long. So this would be great for what it was originally designed for, but I think for foiling, just a few simple modifications to the actual battens, and they make great foiling sails. Here's the 5-6 rigged with a slightly twist tip mast. These sails, especially for foiling, would not work well with a constant curve or a hard tip. There'd just be way too much power up high. For the bottom, you can see that there's just way too much power. This is just really powerful shapes. That'd be great to get up and going, but they're just ridiculously too much. So I need to move the draft profile forward. This one here isn't that bad. This one has a pretty good shape and it's not too bad, just a little further forward. This one here, it's starting to get to the point where yeah, it needs to be moved further forward. This one can almost be just a solid tube, and this one has to be a solid tube. There's no reason. You can see there's a little bit of cup at the top. Don't want that for foiling. Just way too much power up high. Be very difficult to control, and the second you get foiling, it will not help you. And for aggressive pumping onto foiling, having a flat tip flap is much better than a curved, powerful shape that doesn't really go over. You can get a little bit more flick with a nice solid tip. So the two big ones that absolutely need to be changed is this needs to be moved forward and that needs to be solid, and these middle three just to be moved forward a little bit for the draft profile. I have the battens removed and labeled as far as the sail size and which number they are. Number 1 is the top, number 5 is the bottom, except for these down there, there's only 4 battens. And this way, as I mix and match and try to find the most efficient way to move the draft profile forward as effectively as possible, I can always move them back to the original sail for a reference point. I grouped up the battens for the largest and smallest sail sizes from the 2 top battens, middle and then bottom, and they're the exact same thickness on the end, but they're different thicknesses here for the bottom, middle, and top. So I've got number 5 batten from my 5.0 meter sail, and then I have here the number 2 batten from the 4.5 meter sail, and the back is a lot thicker. Before I get further in this process, I'm going to see how the bottom batten rigs with a little bit of a thicker batten to see if the shape is not very good or if it cuts the power. Because if it works, then I'm not going to be able to use these battens at all for the bottom because it has so much power, but it's so thin, there's really nothing holding on to it. And I think that's the original design, to give a lot of power down low, but with foiling, it's not going to work. So I want to make sure I'm not getting into a project that's going to be bigger than my interest level. The second batten out of the 4.5 meter sail didn't quite fit, so I had to pull the second batten out of the 4 meter sail, and it wasn't quite long enough, but I can see easily that it has a good amount of shape down below where it straightens out a lot more, where I believe if I just go ahead and use, let's say, the 5-6 bottom batten in the 4.5, even though I will be able to taper it back, it's still going to offer way too much power. Where this, you can see how it goes nice and straight at the back, but there's still some curve. And of course the right size would probably curve a little bit more, but this looks a lot better. So I'm going to have to think about that as far as what I'm going to use. And I'm going to need a lot more access to more battens because I'm pretty much not going to be able to reuse the bottom battens. I think I need them all to be swapped out with something else. So what I ended up doing just to make this project work is, for example, the 4.5 down to 4 meter for the center batten with the camber. I was taking more of a look at it, and I think that's okay because I just need to move the draft profile a little bit further. And same with the 4.5 to 4.0 and and one side down, I want that to have actually less curve, not as much power. So I most likely will just cut it perfectly and it will have a little less power. At least that's the first rig. And then I might sand the very tips of it just to give a little bit more cut. But as it goes up, I want to start to decrease the power more and more. And I think just cutting off the tip will allow me to do that. And so far, I'm having challenges finding a solid bar for the top. I want that to be a solid. I don't want there to be any taper for the very top. The cool thing is I might have leftover materials for the actual bottom. So my hope is that I'm only going to be out one sail. I have this extra batten that I just have, which is perfect. It has a lot of curve and I'm able to use that from the 5.6 down to the 5.0. And this is great. This is perfect. So I have more materials to kind of play with. I'm trying to get a good workflow as far as making this make sense. So what I'm doing is if I have a batten that I like and it's good, I put it on top of the actual batten. If it's not good or the original, I put it above. So there's one, that's the original. So I'm kind of going around and I'm trying to find the appropriate match, and that's a visual way that I can kind of dance around, go to all these different spots without losing track of which batten is where. So I have complete sets for the 5, the 4, the 3.5, and 3.1. The 4.5, I just need one more batten, and the 5.6, I need a full batten set. But at least I've got something to work with, and I'll probably start with the 5. The marks are all done. All the marks for what I labeled are on the original sails, so I'm going to cut everything one by one. The cool thing is the way I'm able to cut, and because I'm moving the draft profile forward on a lot of these, I won't even have to sand. I'll just have to make a simple hacksaw cut, maybe sand around the edges to make it smooth, put the cap back on, and throw it in. I'm good to go. Only a few of these I'm going to have to actually re-taper the sanding, so that should be good. I had to measure the length of the original batten, but that batten was a different spot, so I had to take it one by one. Some of the easier ones were the number 3 or 4 batten right here, because I just went one size down, so that was a little easier. But just, it took a while to carefully balance, but I'm not sure if anyone's going to be doing a 6-sail quiver switch out, but just to keep track, one way to keep track of all the battens. Make sure to wear breathing protection and eye protection. Not so important for the hacksaw, but as I start sanding, something to get my eyes. So put this one on here. Easy, the first one is. Yeah, whenever you're dealing with fibers, sanding or cutting, it's really important to not breathe it in. There we go. And for this one, I want to sand it to the same exact tip. All these tips are pretty much identical as far as what I can see. You can use 80 grit to get the right shape. And then go to 220 to smooth it out. And I'm keeping the taper nice and close. If I moved it back further, then why bother even getting different battens? So I just want to go really close to the tip. About like this. This should give me a tighter taper. Use it just a little bit. Smooth the edges. Still got more work to do. I'm pretty happy with this curve profile. Has a good shape. It's far forward, and if I find I want to move it further forward, it'll be very easy to make a small adjustment. This is batten 2. And I'm just going to sand this one because this is getting up high enough that I want it to move more straight around the curve. And if I do curve this one out, it's going to be just the very, very tip. Just to provide a little extra power, but I pretty much don't want much curve to the top 2 battens. And this is batten 1, or the top. Ideally, I would like the top battens to all be solid rod breathing carbon tubes, but there's just not enough materials, and I can always do that down the road if I find some extra materials or purchase some battens maybe for your own. This, I'm just going to sand the tip to make sure it won't burr, but I don't want to sand anything away from the sides at all. I want this to be as stiff as possible. Okay, the bottom batten for the 3.5 was just perfect. I like the flex profile, and this is way more forward than it was.
with the stock batten. So I'm just going to take a little bit off the back rather than the front. But it's almost a perfect fit. And this is batten 1 off the 5.6 going into batten 4 of the 3.5. This is going a little slow. I have a lot of experience with an orbital sander, so I'm going to do this. The actual flat block is the best, but I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. Better. Still, I want a little bit more curve at the end of this. Let's see, that's so much better. I really like the curve profile. It bends over with a lot less pressure, and that's good. I'm gonna just smooth it out with 220. A little rough, not bad. The orbital does such a much better job smoothing it than just straight up sandpaper with 80 grit, so it's not that rough. Just clean it up a little bit. That's all it needs. And off the edges. I'm going to put a little bit of super glue for the end piece. It looked like they had super glue on there, just a little bit. Because if I take the battens out and retune them, then I'm not going to lose all these pieces. And that should hold it in place.
This is going to be the main batten for the 5.0. I really like the shape profile. The draft is really far forward and it has a carbon center section. So I'm just going to cut off the back. The 3.1's all ready to get in the water for some tests. The 3.5 is all ready for the water. The 4.0 is ready for the water. The 4.5 is ready for the water, although I'm going to wait till I get the actual batten 5 or the bottom batten swapped out with a modified batten before I test it out. 5.0 is ready for the water. I had the 5.0 North Sails Trilight on the water and I really like it. It was surprisingly pitch stable. It didn't shoot me up or down, and I think that's because as it comes off the end boom clue, it immediately shoots down, and the sail shape naturally is a really balanced sail shape, and that on top of me moving the draft profile forward, it speeded the sail shape up. I got 25.99 miles per hour max speed with my Millennium 1000 front wing and my 115 centimeter fuselage and the 255 rear, but not necessarily a fast setup, even though it's an awesome setup. And this sail went really fast with that, and it wasn't even that windy, so super fast setup, really pitch stable. But in the gusts, I have to sheet in and out a little bit more active than I'd like. Upwind and reaching is fine. Downwind, I really kind of notice the power, and it's more of like, oh, wow, that gust came along going downwind, and I have to really stay on it. The top batten here and on the water is just perfect. It's totally flat, good release, helps for pumping. I like it. Second batten is just a little bit of curve, just a little bit, and powered up, it just has a little bit of curve, and I like it. I'm going to leave that now as is. I may sand a little bit at the front tip just to get a little bit more power at the front later, but right now it's good. For the third one down, it's a good profile, just a little too far back, so I think just sanding the tip, what I may do to this, I'm going to do this now, just sand a little bit of tip right here, and it'll bring a little more cup, and I think reduce a little bit of the back profile curve. This one is good. I really like the profile. It's a good curve, so I'm not going to do anything for the middle one, and the bottom one's a big one. That provides me a lot of power, and the profile is much further forward than it used to be, which is great. You can see that it's this all rigged up. It's straight here, and curved up here, but it's a little too much, I think. I think this is just too abrupt. So all I need to do is cut probably about 2 millimeters off the tip, and I'm gonna, it's a good profile, but I think I'm gonna, actually no, I think it's all right. Maybe a little sanding, we'll see. Flip a coin on that, but I'm definitely gonna cut about 2 millimeters off the front, and that will reduce the tension and still make it taut, because it's really tight here. There's a lot of pressure here, so if I just remove a little material, I think it'll reduce this curve a little bit. Get to sanding and cutting. Now there's a lot more curve profile closer to the front of the batten or the front of the sail. This should help. Take a couple of millimeters off the front. This is a lot better after all the tuning. The bottom camber has a lot of curve, but it's nowhere near as much. Before it was really pushing out. Now it has less of an aggressive curve. This one's unchanged. This one, you can see that it's just a little bit more curved towards the front and a little bit more level as it goes back, and the top two are unchanged. Another thing about this sail, which is interesting, is I don't need the extra extension here. It just makes extra weight at the top. But where this grommet is and where the sail reinforcing parts are for the sail, if I had this with no extension, what would happen is it would put pressure here and it would make this not be taut, and that actually give extra power, but I don't want that. I want this to be nice and tight and nice smooth airfoil. This is kind of a balance. I don't have it extended as far as I could go. I could go a little further, but this is, I've tried it on a bunch of different spots. At this sail, this is the point where I like it to where it's taut enough and it has a good smooth airfoil, but it's not all the way extended. So that's something to note. Older sails can have different benefits as far as an extra tunability here, having more power or less power close to the tip, but it also means you have to have an extended mast, where I think the original was just so you could use different masts with this actual size of a sail. I logged 18 miles on Lake Washington with this Northwave 5.0. I like it. It's stable, it's powerful, it's fast. The only thing I may do in the future is the bottom batten, I may actually make it stiffer, because right now it's a smooth gradient, so it still has a lot of power, and when I cut it down a little bit, it has a little bit of wrinkles. It did reduce the power a little bit, but I think having the same length as stock and just making it the same thickness as the back, but as same thickness as the back, but as I go forward, don't go to the full taper. That should allow it to be a stiffer, less powerful shape, but I'll lose a little power on the same line. So I don't think that will be a permanent change. It will be an option. So this would be a more powerful batten, and then I'll have the other batten that can switch back and forth to see which I like more, because I already like the sail so much as is. And the other thing I may do is the top grommet here. This grommet is attached to a really durable part of the sail where this is not as durable, and at this length it has a nice pulled tight shape, and if I go shorter then this is all baggy and loose, and I don't want that. So I may call Northwave to see if they have any advice. Maybe I could add a grommet here but have reinforcing go down to here and sew it in. I don't want to get too complex because this works as is and I have the adjustability and everything's good. It's more of just a performance increase. It won't make the sail 10 times better. Just be kind of nice to maybe have a slightly shorter mast. But those are two things I'm going to work on in the future for the sail. But overall, total win. I'm excited to try the 4.0 and 3.1. But yeah, thanks. Like, subscribe, and share if you like this video. And if you have any questions, let me know. Have a great day.